God of War has gotten millions of fans throughout the world since its initial release back in 2018. But believe it or not, there are still thousands of people every year who experience this game for the first time. So if you are one of those players, this video will cover 5 of the best skills you should grab early on that will benefit the start of your first playthrough greatly. And if you're a veteran player, stick around and let me know which skills you would have gone for. And kicking things off for us, the first skill we've got is Pride of Frost, which throws in a heavy attack at the end of your light attack combo. This is especially good in the early game since you do not have access to all that many combos, and it's a great way to deal a solid chunk of damage to multiple enemies since it has an AoE effect. Do not sleep on this skill, it gets especially good once you've unlocked the Permafrost skill, which imbues your Leviathan axe with frost damage for every hit where you do not take damage. But Permafrost is not that necessary in the early game. It's definitely a great addition, but Pride of Frost, a great addition to your arsenal. You can't go wrong with this, and it's a great way to make the combat feel a little less awkward early on, and a nice way to transition from light attacks to heavy attacks. Next up we've got the Executioner's Cleave, which is another skill focused on your heavy attack that with a bit of a charge can deal massive amounts of damage or just kill an enemy outright in the case of smaller enemies specifically. It is a very good skill to have early on. The problem is enemies have a tendency to avoid them, smaller enemies specifically, and this is very noticeable in Alfheim, but with the help of Atreus you can either shoot them with his arrows or he can go and grab onto them, and when this happens you can then take that opportunity to go and punish by, like I said, either dealing massive amounts of damage or killing them outright. This is a very good skill to have. Do not sleep on this one. And now we finally get to the shield combat section of the skill tree. These are great because fighting with your shield or bare hands can significantly benefit your gameplay, since it's not only a different damage type to Frost, but it also builds up much more stun damage, and I'll explain why that last part is important in just a little bit. And the first skill I've got for you here is Guardian's Justice, which is yet another skill focused on the heavy attack. While barehanded you can hold down on R2 to perform a shield slam and inflict moderate amounts of stun damage. This is great because once the stun bar fills up it can break an enemy, and once an enemy is broken you can go in for a finisher or a very potent punishing attack in the case of most bosses. So this is very useful when you need to finish a fight quickly and move on to the next enemy. Guardian's Justice is also needed to open up the path to its big brother Guardian's Judgment, which just deals more stun damage. Alright, so Countering Strike is our first defensive skill, and it doubles as an offensive skill because if you block at the last second, which is also a parry, this game just calls it a last second for some reason. When you block at the last second and press R1, you perform a counter attack which deals a good chunk of damage, but the main reason I put it on here is because firstly it's flashy as hell, secondly it has the ability to yeet enemies off of ledges, which is invaluable. And if you are at all familiar with the previous God of War games, you will know that offense is generally the best defense, and this also opens up the path to countering Crush, which is just a heavy attack version of this. And a last little side note is, this is our first skill which does not revolve around the heavy attack. And the last skill we've got here is actually one of your first passive skills, which does not need any input from you, and it also ties into your ability to inflict stun damage, which is Ferocity. Ferocity allows Atreus to deal high stun damage to any enemy that gets near him. This is obviously useful because the quicker you can get that stun bar to fill up and the enemy breaks, the quicker you can run in and finish off an enemy and ending fights much quicker. This is very good to grab early, so yeah, do not sleep on this one as well. Now I also want to give a few honorable mentions, but before I do that I just want to speak about why I've chosen these specific 5 skills first and why I've chosen them over the others. Don't get me wrong, almost all of the early game skills are fantastic to choose, but I don't think they are more important than these 5. So the reason I chose them is because in the early game it is very easy for the combat to feel a little bit clunky maybe, and it takes a while for things to smooth out. And these 5 skills that I've chosen here I feel do that job the quickest. It makes combat flow a little bit easier, a little bit more smooth, and you can get through almost every encounter much easier with these 5 skills. But nevertheless, don't let that discourage you. If you have any other skill that you would have chosen over these 5 I have here, please share them with me. Maybe someone can find value in them. Maybe I myself can find value in it. And maybe that's the next skill I unlock, who knows. But do share them with me. Now, let's move on to the honorable mentions. Alright, so firstly we've got Freezing Burst. With this, when you aim with your axe and you hold in your R2 button, it charges up the axe with frost, and then when it is thrown, it explodes upon impact, dealing frost damage. This is good when you want to freeze an enemy in place, because it does that most of the time, and then deal with the rest of the enemies barehanded. The reason I did not put this one in is because it's pretty situational. And you know, it can stun enemies, but it's not the most effective early game skill to smooth up combat all that much. The next skills are actually a 2-for-1, which is Frost Rush and Leviathan's Fury. With this, while sprinting, if you perform either a light or heavy attack, you perform a leaping attack, obviously one being more stronger than the other, that one being Leviathan's Fury. This is good to smooth up combat, but I felt the previous ones that I mentioned worked a little bit better in your general flow as you are getting used to the combat. But definitely grab these as soon as you've grabbed the other 5. They are very great to use, especially when you have to charge down an enemy. It makes it a little less awkward when you finally reach your target. And the last honorable mention is the skill Teamwork in Atreus's skill tree. Now, this is pretty useful, especially when dealing with mobs, because Atreus will run in and help out Kratos when he is vulnerable or when he is getting attacked. Makes it a bit easier to deal with a lot of enemies at once. Definitely smooths up the combat, but it's not as necessary as Kratos does most of the work most of the time. But it is a good one to have early on if you have finished grabbing the essentials. But that is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, only if you really want to. It does help out my channel. I'm trying to revive the channel currently, because it's been dormant for quite a while, and I can see it in the amount of views I usually got compared to now. The interaction with my audience just is at an all-time low, if I have to put it that way. But I enjoyed making this video. I'm gonna make a lot more God of War content. I'm gonna focus on this game for a while, so hopefully look forward to that, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe, may God bless you all, and consider checking out one of my other videos about one of my other games, the most recent ones being the videos for Expedition 33, which is a fantastic game. If you haven't checked it out, do check it out.